Hello, and welcome to another episode of Joy and Gratitude. I am here with my wonderful co host, Ms. Beth Mercurio, who always has a good topic for us to discuss. Beth?
Yes. Hey, Nio. I'm super excited today. Today, we are going to talk about rhythm and how rhythm is something that all of us, leaders, individuals, any kind of human, can use rhythm to move us forward, to keep us consistent, to be in a rhythm. Think about how many times people say that, but I want to get a little bit deeper. I want to share that it was through one of your fabulous joy notes. So I want to send our listeners back to Neo's joy notes blog every day because some of them are really powerful. And this one, for me, was really beautiful, especially since your book about joy notes and the impact of music on your life is so important. I just want you to share a little bit about this topic of rhythm for you, and then as it does, it will explode into so many other areas. But tell us about how you believe rhythm plays a role in each one of our lives.
Even when we don't know, rhythm is a part of our life. So I'm going to take everybody into something that's really very simple, which is the whole concept of dance. When you're learning a new dance, you are taking micro steps and you're doing them in a sequence. And each one of those steps leads you forward to completing the sequence and being part of that sequence. And you can do it with music or without music. And then it becomes a pattern. So that is the way rhythm works in our own lives. Think it from the moment that you get up in the morning. You start by I get up, maybe I go to the bathroom, I brush my teeth, I go in the shower. I go into a process that guides me through my day. As leaders, the way that we show up and we guide our people and give them their clarity and give them their ability to work within a process, that denotes the rhythm. That gives them the safety of knowing how to approach, how to react. Is their reaction going to be accepted? Are they going to be chastised? What are the outcomes of the situation? Based on the rhythm that you create in the landscape, that is the performance of your people. That is the performance of your household. That is the performance of your children. If your children know that if they can tell you anything, you're not going to get upset. You're going to deal with the moment and you're going to deal with the issue. There's a safety and there's a rhythm of trust. If in your workplace they know that you are always going to have a sequence of communication, clarity, and also open door for insights from them, they know they're in a safe, trusting environment. So rhythm is there with music or without music, but it always continues. And because you have that rhythm, you could be that leader that you could go away on a vacation and the rhythm continues because they know what to do in your absence because you've already orchestrated them to be able to continue, no matter
Mm.
if you're there or not.
I love that idea, and I have this funny story to share as you were talking. Maybe a couple weeks ago, I went to a 50th birthday party, and part of the party was line dancing. So when you started to talk about dancing, I was so excited to have a teacher. So think of that as your conductor, as your CEO, as your mother, father, leader of the household. Someone was there to show me the steps, the micro steps. And even though I was learning the micro steps, I did know that it didn't really matter if I messed up. Everybody there, it was a birthday party, it was people I love, it was family and friends. And so I laughed so much at all the times I did not get the steps. I don't know these dances. These were the first dances I was kind of learning. But by the end, to get the dance felt incredible. That feeling of, "Oh my gosh, I've got the steps. I know what I'm doing." And then I was able to sort of add my own, for people that can't
Swag.
see me, I'm adding my shoulders and, my wrists. And it was really fun because my daughter Lila was getting the dance quicker than I was. She just it was easier for her. She got the steps, and I was watching her add her swag early. And it was very motivating to me to see, like, oh, once I get the steps, then I get to add even my own extra. I get to elevate and amplify the dance in my own way, and that we were all doing it, but together and separate and individually at the same time. We got to bring our own spirit and our own gifts to the dance. So as I think about that beautiful analogy you used about rhythm and dance being closely aligned, that comes to mind by the end of the night, how fun it was. And that the reason that worked was that I trusted that it didn't matter if I got it wrong. If I took a misstep, I knew I just had to try again. It wasn't a big deal. This ability to fail was completely normalized. And I think about that when I think about companies and families and children. If you know that you can fail and it will be okay, and people will actually help you learn the steps, then you will get to this outcome, which is moving forward, being in flow, feeling rhythm, and being able to do it by yourself, which you just mentioned all of those. But I had this relevant example of I just feel like I got to know what that felt like in my body to experience that through, a few hours in a very finite piece of time as I learned to dance.
And line dancing is perfect. It's the perfect visual because everybody is in unison doing these steps. Everybody's doing the steps together. Like you said, everybody has a little flair. I think of the electric slide. There's always that person that just dips a little bit more than the other, but it's okay because they're all in the rhythm. And I always find it interesting when sometimes they turn the music off, but people don't stop the steps. They're still together doing the steps. And now your teacher is no longer there, but you still can move in the rhythm. And that is the way that we actually are able to get to our goals is to be in the rhythm. We break things down sometimes to the level that it just is hard to digest. We say, oh, you have to have discipline. Oh, you have to have a growth mindset. Oh, you have to have this. You have to have rhythm because all those things are in rhythm. The discipline of learning the steps, the discipline of understanding that your flair makes the steps even better, the discipline of owning it no matter what, and doing it when the music stops. When nobody's watching, you're still doing it. And if you really want to perfect it, just practice, practice, practice. That is the way we reach our goals. That is the way that we consistently make our people thrive, whether it's our children, whether it's our team. That is how trust. That is how we infuse each other into greatness.
I I'm thinking about this idea of dancing without the music, or being taught something and then the person who's taught you is no longer there, and how you can step into that if you've practiced. This The word independence is coming to me as I think about maybe parenting a little bit more, but also leadership in a corporate setting. The reality is, if you empower your people, you show them, but you also say, I believe in you. Like, I know that you can do this when I'm not here. I'm going to help you. I'm going to show you the way. But you've brought it up again. So much of this resides within us as humans to say, if I trust, if I feel safe, if I have a growth mindset and I'm willing to learn, those are all the things that set us up for success. And the beauty of thinking of each of us as independent humans, being able to own our own rhythm. And when you started the conversation about rhythm and routine, there was a little bit of like, you can think of your rhythm as you wake up and you have your own rhythm. We all have our own rhythm. But if we think about rhythm versus routine, and I have not thought about it, I'm just sitting here talking to you now going, because routine feels so structured and it feels like you know exactly what you need to do. Like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And you know what the outcomes are. I'm going to be clean. I'm going to have good smelling breath, right? I'm going to be awake because I had my coffee. Right? You really do know what those things are. But the rhythm part allows for the flair that we just talked about. It allows for this movement within a structure that I think, it literally is making me want to dance a little bit and move a little bit. It's like, I don't have to be so rigid. I don't have to have a routine that's so rigid. I need to be able to flow and to have some rhythm and to move in and out as things change, as other people come unexpectedly into our days. So as we talk about rhythm, I feel like we're back at that concept of flow in this sort of magical way, but that rhythm is something that we can learn from other people and then bring ourselves fully into it.
Absolutely. And what we also learn is the tempo. You know,
Mm.
tempo, why is music so important in self regulation? It really is about tempo. It's about taking your brain and bringing it back to the tempo that you love. And for many people, it could be a valid. Another tempo, it could be rock music, whatever it is. We're all very different, but tempo in rhythm is what brings the catalyst to take the extra step. You see, it's so easy to get stuck, but rhythm doesn't get stuck. Rhythm is always in flow, always in movement, and tempo is always in movement. So even when you're in the presence of a moment that you are taken back a little, the rhythm lets you flow forward and lets you take the next step. And the tempo keeps you awake and clears all the fuzziness of the shock and awe and lets you reconnect because the tempo, it's like a metronome. I got to move. I got to move. I don't have a choice. When I was learning piano, part of the reason we use the metronome is to keep us moving forward. Even if you made a mistake, you still kept going until it just became so fluid that you own that tempo and rhythm.
Another word's coming up for me, which is pace. So as you think about tempo from a musical perspective, I love this idea of it's consistent and you know what it is. And you can always come back to it because it's right there. When I think about life and I think about people that I work with, pace comes up a lot. Too fast, running instead of slowing down. And I love the idea that when we are maybe going too fast, so you're not even in time, you're way past the beat. You have surpassed it and you're going too fast over the beat.
Mhm.
That we know what that feels like and we get to choose to step back slower than the tempo to come back to our rhythm. And this is what we talk about. We need to slow down sometimes, slow down to speed up. I say that all the time. You have to slow down to speed up. And now, as we're talking, I'm thinking to myself, maybe it's just slow down to catch up to that tempo and rhythm that you know works. So get back to that tempo. Slow down the pace when you need to. We know what it feels like when you're over it. We all know. And it's our individual choice to slow down, knowing that that rhythm that's consistent, and then we know what it feels like, we know what it looks like, we have trust in it, is where we want to be. This is such a beautiful. I don't snap as beautifully as you do. I'm trying, well, it's not so bad. Your snap was so crisp. I was like, that is a beautiful snap. But I could do it. I could do it. I got it. I got my snaps. But whatever it is that we want to get back to
There you go.
that rhythm, right? We don't want to be this. This is
It's
like
not
this is how we
sustainable.
feel.
But it's not
No.
sustainable. The race can't be a race without an end because
Yes.
your body cannot sustain being in that race format for longer than X amount of time. And everybody's has a different X, right? Because it's tone, fit, all that good stuff. Um, but your body cannot be racing as your heart cannot be racing forever. It has to have an end. However, the heart has a tempo, has a rhythm. Life has a tempo, has a rhythm. And we have to acknowledge what our tempo is, what our rhythm is, and the components of it so that we can bring those that are with us along so that we are all in that harmonious tempo. What is the number one thing that happens when you try to merge two groups? You're really trying to merge two rhythms. One may be going really, really fast because that's the agenda they've been on for so long, and they may be close to burnout and not know it. Then the other one has maybe is the established company, and I talk about the fast company, the entrepreneurish company, and then the sustainable brick and mortar company that's been around for a very long time, and how they're very different. And often they have to merge. And in the merge, it's really creating a new rhythm that they both can coexist. Not too fast, not too slow, because the entrepreneurs need the energy, the faster movement. The brick and mortar needs to hone in on their stability. But together in a line dance, they can be in a rhythm that they both are feeding their needs and performing in excellence.
This idea of tempos coming together. I'm thinking about life and that there are times where you're going super fast or life is going fast. And the idea that you mentioned that that's not sustainable. I think there are times in our lives where we know we're in an acute moment where life is going to be fast for a while. And we talk about it. I think going back, the back to school timeframe is just one that comes to mind, or I'm moving. I mean, those are times where no matter what you say, you're going to be faster and it's not sustainable, but there is an end. So I love this idea of if you know there's an end, can you say, acknowledge, and own? My rhythm's going to be a little bit different. I know the rhythm that I thrive in. And maybe I have to be faster, but what can I do during this time frame where I'm going to be faster than my natural rhythm, the rhythm that I thrive in, so that I can get closer in to that tempo more often than not. And you talked about practice and practicing, and I think this idea of practicing to know what our beautiful rhythm is, our each individual rhythm, where is it that we thrive, where we have enough of what we need to move in a way that feels really good and healthy. And how can we notice when we're too fast? And maybe we haven't talked about it, but there's times in lives when we're too slow. We don't have the energy. We don't feel like doing anything. We're a little bit stuck and we can't get that energy, which has movement and gets us moving. So if we could figure out that tempo for ourselves, through our self leadership, through our introspection, through our reflection. I think it could really help us in the moments where we know, wow, I'm going to have a really hectic, well past my rhythm month or two or three, whatever it is, time frame. Or wow, I've been feeling a little bit low and slow. What do I need to do to get back? What are some of the things that help me keep a thriving rhythm and know what that looks like? I don't know.
I
That's just coming to me as we talk, but I'm curious how that lands with you, and what are some of the things you think of when I say how can we identify that zone of our thriving rhythm?
one of the things that for our brain is that we need to speak it. We literally need to say, this tempo isn't sustainable for me. You need to be able to verbalize it because the brain needs to hear that there's an end in sight, that you acknowledge that this is tough, and that you're not comfortable in it, and that you're going to resolve it. That is extremely important. But as important as it is that you verbalize it, yes, speaking to yourself out loud is essential for self regulation. It's essential for the acknowledgement, for the brain to acknowledge that this is the accepted thought pattern because your brain is in so many different thoughts that it needs to hear what is it that you really are feeling. So when you verbalize your feelings, when you verbalize where you are actually honing in, it gives the brain the acceptance of that situation and how you're going to handle it. And as it's true for our brain, it's true for our family, for our teams. When things happen that take us out of our norm pace, and we know it's going to be hard, that's when communication has to be at its utmost point. You must verbalize and provide insights of this is going to be hard for a minute. We are going to struggle through this, but we're going to make it out to the other side. And these are the things that we're going to be focusing on and struggling through. But we got this because we are a team and we're capable of doing it. We are a family and we're able to do it. So, verbalization is the first step of regulation. And that helps us actually let our brain put us in sync with the rhythm for that situation and let us be able to dive back into our pace.
I have another example or story that's coming to mind, which is recently I've had people inquire about how we do our podcasts. So, how do you do it and how much preparation and where do you find the topics? And just out of curiosity, everybody's really curious about it. And so I've said the topics usually will come up, either Neil will blog about something, come from our experience.
Right.
And so, yes, we do think about the topic before, but that our conversation is rhythmic. So, right now, as we're talking, our podcast is an example of being in rhythm. And fundamentally, what's coming, another beautiful word is, and we've mentioned it prior, but I'm just going to say it one more time, is trust. Because once you trust yourself that you will stay in rhythm, and if you don't, you will adjust and shift.
Mhm.
You will downshift, you will shift up, you will do what is needed to keep you in that zone. It is the self trust that allows you to stay in the rhythm together. And I think I trust myself enough to know if I get it wrong on the podcast, I'm just going to say, I got it wrong on the podcast. And we're going to go from there, from that moment. And I trust you enough to know that if for some reason I'm over or under, or like we're in this together. And the only way for this to happen is to organically go forward together. And I know that in my heart and I trust it. Therefore, the conversations are a rhythm that we create together. whenever we do them. And I think that is this beauty of us being in rhythm together is an example of trusting, knowing that it's going to be okay regardless, helping each other, learning from each other what the right rhythm is. And so, if you're listening or watching, maybe that's just an example. What is it like to be in rhythm? It's letting go and just doing your flow and knowing that you will recover as needed to stay in that zone of thriving and moving forward.
I completely agree. And you know, while you were speaking, what came to mind is the power of trust in that process and in your rhythm. There's been so many times that we have shown up to do the podcast and we've had just shit happen in our lives
That's right.
for all different reasons. Just stuff happens. And, we're coming in and we may be sad, we may be sick, we may be just a host of different things. And there's an electricity that happens as soon as we see each other that immediately we fall into rhythm. And when that countdown happens, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, poof, it's incredible. It is like this energy, this rhythm that happens that takes all that is previous to the countdown and throws it away, and we are in harmonious rhythm. And that is what we're talking about. We're talking about just letting go the garbage and being so present and in flow that you are your utmost best, authentically your utmost best. And you don't even think about it, you just are. I have never been on this podcast and not smiled. It's impossible. We
It's
just
true.
automatically are smiling throughout the whole podcast. It's literally impossible for us.
It's
And
true.
that's our rhythm because our energy is so aligned, and it just feels electric. I think that's always one of your words, and
We
I love it.
it's like,
it
ah!
yeah, it's literally electric. So when I think of the song that um, goes perfectly with this specific episode, I think of Rhythm Nation. We are a part of the Rhythm Nation, Janet Jackson. And it just is a perfect song to keep us marching as an army into our force, into our rhythm. Let's see what the Gratitude Rocks have to say.
Yes. Let's see. Let's see. It's a very pretty sort of green blue color, and the word is balance. Balance. So, what that means for me when we talk about rhythm is that we all have our own individual rhythm, but we balance that with whoever we're with. And you mentioned it, creating a rhythm with someone else. And I love that initially we started to talk about someone teaching and helping people understand the rhythm, showing clear expectations of what the rhythm is, but then that we individually have our own rhythm to bring to each other and to our communities. And it really is a balance of if your rhythm and my rhythm are different, that's okay. Let's balance them and come up with our mutual rhythm together, which is what we do every time we're together on the podcast. So it's a beautiful word as we think about rhythm and creating rhythms together.
Absolutely. Balancing rhythms and having the ability to accept others' rhythms and seeing how our rhythm can complement it is the powerful flow that we bring to each other's lives. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Joy and Gratitude. See you soon.